the luxury Hyatt Regency Hotel in Kansas City. It's just 1 year old and is famed for its ambitious architectural design. One sultry July evening, almost 1,500 people crowd inside the hotel's hallmark atrium for a tea dance. Suddenly, part of the building collapses, killing 114 people. It's the worst structural failure in US history. Now, using advanced computer simulation, we reveal what caused the Kansas City Hyatt collapse. Disasters don't just happen, they're a chain of critical events. Unravel the clues and count down those final seconds from disaster. The American Midwest, Missouri, Kansas City. May 1978. Builders start work on the 150-meter tall, 40-story Hyatt. As they begin phase one of the build, local engineering firm GCE, owned by Jack Gillum, is still finalizing the hotel's design. The hotel centerpiece will be its impressive 44-meter wide, 15-meter high, glass-ceilinged atrium. 3 suspended walkways will span this vast space, connecting guest rooms to a conference center and shopping complex. Friday, July 17th, 1981. 6 p.m. In the 12 months since it opened, the Hyatt has become one of the city's top night spots. Tonight, 1,500 people crowd into the famous atrium for one of the hotel's most popular regular events, a 1940-style tea dance competition. As the dancers practice their moves, a TV crew arrives in the lobby. Reporter Michael Mahoney has worked for the local news station KMBC for a year. He's here to film a light-hearted feature item for the evening news. 7:04 p.m. The band strikes up a popular foxtrot, and the dance competition begins. Mike Mahoney's crew films a top shot from the first-floor restaurant. Hundreds of spectators in the lobby watch the 200 couples competing in the foxtrot round. 7:05 p.m. In the restaurant on the first-floor mezzanine, reporter Mike Mahoney hears a noise from across the atrium.
I heard this real sharp metallic pop, pop.
Mike Mahoney traces the popping noise to the skywalks opposite him.
I was directly on level with the second walkway, and the second walkway began to sag. And it took just a few seconds, but it seemed like forever at the moment. It sort of sagged down, and then all of a sudden, it just dropped.
People watch in horror as the first and third floor glass and concrete skywalks plummet into the crowded lobby.
It was an awful scene. It was just terrible. There were people that were cut badly. There were people that had had limbs amputated. And there were people that had been trapped underneath these walkways.
7:07 p.m. 2 minutes since the collapse. Lying under the remains of the first and third floor walkways is property valuer Mark Williams. Just seconds ago, he was getting a drink at the bar. Now he's pinned to the floor under 65 tons of wreckage.
My left leg was up behind my head and up here behind my right ear. My right leg was torn out of the socket.
7:17. Firefighters and emergency personnel arrive. They swiftly set up a makeshift morgue in the hotel lobby. Outside, they turn the hotel's taxi rank into a treatment center. ER Dr. Joe Wackerly is on the scene within 12 minutes of the collapse.
When I walked in, I heard screaming and yelling. There was water flowing out of the ceiling from broken water pipes. I remember thinking to myself, whoa, how am I going to deal with this?
Dr. Wackerly realizes that he faces some hard decisions.
This was going to be, you get care and you live, you don't get care and you die. That's what we had to do. You have to say, gee, you're dying and I can't help you. Make your peace with God.
10 hours after the Hyatt Skywalk's collapse, rescuers focus on recovering bodies. Workmen use jackhammers to break up the slabs of collapsed walkways. They don't realize that deep under the rubble, one man is still alive. Mark Williams is right under the feet of a drilling crew, but they cannot hear his shouts over the noise of the jackhammer.
The jackhammer comes through the rubble again, and it goes between my legs. And now I'm thinking, they've triangulated me. The next one's coming right through the middle of my back, and I got braced for it.
Help!
Then, as the crew line up the jackhammer for another run, somebody finally hears Mark's desperate cries.
Help! Somebody!
And I remember a guy saying, my God, there's somebody alive under here.
4:30 a.m. Firefighter Ray Wynn pulls Mark Williams from the pile of debris. Almost 10 hours after the collapse, he's the last person found alive, but he's horribly injured. 5 a.m. An ambulance crew rushes Mark to hospital. He's still conscious, but his back is broken and his kidneys are failing.
The news, a special report.
As Mark Williams undergoes emergency surgery, the enormity of the Hyatt tragedy emerges.
Who is responsible for the Hyatt Skywalk collapse?
114 people have been killed. A further 186 are injured, many of them severely. It's the deadliest structural failure in American engineering history. Now, by rewinding the disaster and by going deep into the investigation, we reveal what really happened at the Kansas City Hyatt. Monday, July 20th, 1981. 3 days after the disaster, relatives hold the first funerals for the victims. Hyatt, the hotel operator, and the building's owner, the Crown Center Redevelopment Corporation, start their own investigations into the tragedy. But Kansas City's mayor, Richard Berkeley, wants an independent public inquiry. He asks the National Bureau of Standards to step in. The NBS is a highly regarded independent federal body that provides scientific analysis for the US government. But its investigation could take months. Local newspaper, the Kansas City Star, decides to shortcut the process. The paper wants a local structural engineer, Wayne Lishka, to become its undercover investigator.
I was surprised by the phone call and a little apprehensive about taking the job. On one side, I wanted to do it because I wanted to get involved and see what really did happen.
3 days after the collapse, the building's owners decide to let the press inside the ruined atrium. But the reporters, among them undercover sleuth Wayne Lishka, soon find there's a catch. The journalists are only allowed to view the wreckage from 30 meters away. But the Kansas City Star guessed that Lishka might be kept at arm's length and hatched an ingenious plot. Lishka is armed with a secret weapon, a photographer with a telephoto lens.
While they were moving us along, I was with the photographer and I was telling him what I wanted him to take pictures of.
Lishka can see the tangled wreckage of the first and third floor walkways where they fell on the lobby floor. Overhead, all that remains of the original structure are 6 5-meter-long hanger rods, still fixed to the ceiling. It's enough to allow Lischke to work out the walkway design. The upper walkway would have been suspended from the ceiling by this set of rods. Lischke realizes that there must have been a second set of rods bolted into the upper walkway that carried the lower walkway 9 meters below. More importantly, the ceiling hanger rods are a crucial clue to where the failure happened.
First thing that caught my eye was the rods were still hanging from the ceiling.
Since the rods are intact, Lischke believes that the structure must have failed at the point where the upper walkway was connected to the hanger rods. Did a faulty fixing at this critical connection point fail? To find out, he would need to examine the wreckage more closely, something the builder's owners will not allow. Lischke hopes the photographs may reveal more, but now he has a brainwave. City Hall must hold a set of the Hyatt blueprints. But City Hall tells Lischke he can't see the blueprints. Librarians are in the process of cataloging them. His undercover investigation for the Kansas City Star hits a brick wall. While Lischke's sleuthing stalls, the official investigation gets into gear. A team of 4 scientists from the National Bureau of Standards flies into Kansas City. Among them is lead investigator Edward Frang. His first priority, to examine the Hyatt's collapsed walkways. But when he arrives at the Hyatt, Frang and his MBS team are shocked and baffled by what they find. The lobby is empty.
Tradition, precision, and dedication to a dying art. Meet the real modern-day warriors who have dedicated their lives to the longevity of the legendary samurai sword. They're not kimono-clad warlords in the woods, but master craftsmen, workers wreathed in the steam of their own sweat, forging steel that can't be found anywhere else in the world. These are the last of a fading few who have hoarded secret knowledge passed down the generations. In a rarely seen medieval corner of modern-day Japan, this is how a coveted katana samurai sword is made. And in the ultimate examination, the sword master puts the burnished blade to the test. Can it deflect a steel-tipped arrow at point-blank range?
Scientists flown in from the National Bureau of Standards, or NBS, to investigate the Hyatt Regency Skywalk collapse have hit a problem. The walkway wreckage has gone. The building's owners have taken it away for private analysis. For lead investigator Dr. Edward Frang, chief of the Bureau's Structures Division, it's a massive blow.
We were shocked to have it removed and very disappointed.
Frang immediately petitions the Circuit Court of Jackson County for access to the wreckage, which lies in a warehouse downtown. If the court denies the MBS request, its independent investigation of the Hyatt disaster is dead in the water. Meanwhile, engineer Wayne Lischke's unofficial investigation for the Kansas City Star gets a shot in the arm. The Hyatt building plans are now back at City Hall after cataloguing. He hopes they might hold some clue to the walkway's collapse. But what he finds in City Hall comes as a bombshell.
I was shocked at that point in time. It literally only took seconds to realize that what was on the plans and what was built in the field were not the same thing.
The design plans, filed by Jack Gillam's engineering firm, GCE, show the first and third floor walkways hanging from the ceiling by a series of 14-meter-long hanger rods. But Lischka knows from his visit to the Hyatt that this is not how the walkways were actually built. The rods still hanging from the ceiling were simply not long enough to reach the lower walkway. A second set of rods bolted into the upper walkway must have carried its twin below. He's already deduced that the structure failed at the point where the upper walkway was connected to the ceiling rods. Now, he's beginning to understand why. According to the plans, this critical connection point was only meant to bear the weight of the upper walkway. In the built structure, it carries the weight of the lower walkway as well, twice its intended load. Lischka needs to know, did engineer Jack Gillam change the connection point design to take account of this extra load? Hours later, the newly developed photographs of the walkway wreckage give him his answer. They clearly show that several of the upper walkway connection points have dramatically failed. 3 crossbeams form the walkway's basic structure. At the connection point, the hanger rods pass through the end of each beam or channel and are secured by a nut underneath. It's starkly obvious to Lischka why this connection point design was not up to the task.
These are basically 2 8-inch channels similar to the ones that were used in the Skywalk. Normally, if you wanted to make a walkway out of 2 channels, what they would have done is turned them back to back and taken the rod and put it in between. On the Hyatt, what they did is they took 2 channels and they turned them toe to toe, and then they welded them to form a box beam. Welding the 2 pieces together makes it very weak right through here.
Welded box beams were adequate to provide the walkway's basic framework, but using them to form the connection point poses a serious problem. Here, they must bear the entire load of both walkways. Lischka publishes his findings in the Kansas City Star. But without access to the walkways themselves, it remains no more than an intriguing theory. Then, 12 days after the collapse, the Circuit Court of Jackson County issues a crucial judgment. It grants the NBS investigation team access to the remains of the walkways locked up in a Kansas City warehouse. The investigators' first priority, to confirm where the walkways gave way. Amid the wreckage of the upper walkway, they unearth all 6 of its critical connection points and make a disturbing discovery. On each of them, the welds on the box beam have folded inwards and upwards, allowing the hanger rod to pull right through. One box beam, named 9UE, shows signs of longer-term damage than the others, suggesting it gave way first. Both Lischka and Frang think a failure in the box beam connections is the cause of the disaster. But unlike Lischka, Frang can put the theory to the test. In the National Engineering Laboratory in Gaithersburg, Maryland, investigators attach steel box beams to hanger rods to make 2 exact replicas of the connection point. First, they want to find out if the critical connection point was able to take the weight of the walkways without people. Under the weight of walkways alone, the walls of the beam start to bow, but the connection does not give way. But investigators know that there were 63 people on the walkways when they fell. They estimate that this would add an extra ton, bringing the total load to just over 9 tons. They repeat the experiment with a second identical connection. This time, they'll gradually add the extra weight to observe exactly what happens to the connection points. At 8,070 kilograms, the side walls distort further and the base starts to give way. At 8,160 kilograms, the weld gives way with a crack. Then, at 8,255 kilograms, it fails completely. The NBS conclusion is clear-cut and deeply shocking. The third floor walkway connections were nowhere near strong enough to carry the weight of 2 walkways and people.
From the day that they were put up, they were a disaster waiting to happen.
The investigation reveals in chilling detail exactly what caused 2 walkways to tear loose from their supports high above a crowded dance floor, leaving 114 Friday night revelers seconds from disaster. 7 p.m., 5 minutes to disaster. The Hyatt's Friday night tea dance buzzes with 1,500 partygoers. Dozens of people flock onto the third floor walkway to escape the throng. But beneath their feet, the walkway's 6 connection points struggle to carry the 9-ton load. 7:04 p.m. The base of box beam 9UE buckles. As its welds snap, people hear the popping from up to 30 meters away. As the base of the beam folds, the hanger rod rips free. 2 seconds later, disaster strikes. Box beam 9UE fails. The 5 remaining connections on the third floor instantaneously unzip. The third floor walkway plummets down at over 15 meters per second. 65 tons of concrete and steel crashes to the lobby floor in just 1.6 seconds. A fatal flaw in the construction of the walkways is responsible for the deaths of 114 people. But who was to blame for the walkway's fatal flaw? The spotlight now falls on Jack Gillam, head of engineering firm GCE, which designed the Hyatt. As chief engineer, it was Gillam's job to ensure that all aspects of the walkway were structurally sound. So what went wrong? Jack Gillam tells investigators that 1 year into the Hyatt build, his firm, GCE, sent drawings of the walkway and its connection points to the fabricator, Haven Steel. Haven Steel says that the single hanger rod design is too hard to build and proposes 2 sets of rods instead. 1 month later, GCE gives the new walkway design its stamp of approval. Investigators are mystified. Gillam's concept for the connection point is flawed from the start, and the new design doubles the load it will carry. But at no stage does GCE attempt to rectify the problem. Why wasn't the mistake spotted? Now Gillam makes a staggering admission. Nobody at GCE ran any calculations on the strength of the walkway connections. He maintains that it's custom and practice in Missouri for the fabricator to do the calculations, while Haven Steel insist that it's the engineer's job to check the design. The ASCE suspends Gillam. After 5 years of litigation, the Missouri State Board holds GCE responsible for the collapse and revokes Gillam's license to practice in the state of Missouri. The Kansas City Star won a Pulitzer Prize for Wayne Lishka's reports on the Hyatt Skywalk collapse. Lishka still works as an engineer in Kansas City. Mark Williams spent 2 months in intensive care and endured many months more of painful rehabilitation. Despite suffering a broken back and having both legs torn out of their sockets, Mark made a complete recovery. In the wake of the tragedy, Kansas City completely overhauled its building regulations. requiring that all load-bearing calculations be checked by a city-appointed engineer. And the American Society of Civil Engineers rewrote its rules to send a clear message to structural engineers. You are responsible for the plans that carry your stamp.